foam thing? Okay.
My spit guard.
Yeah.
What's Burberry singing?
Adam, you may have to keep an eye on the door. That back door, the locking mechanism on it's broke. Those guys may have to walk all the way around the building to get in. Okay. Good evening. If you'd stand with me for the invocation and pledge of allegiance, please. With us this evening, we have Pastor Troy Nesselrode from New Hope Baptist. Would you lead us in the invocation, please?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we ask your blessings on these proceedings, that we would seek you first, that all that is done and achieved here this evening would be acceptable in your eyes and for your glory. Lord, we ask now your blessing on these good people who have been called to lead our community in this endeavor, our community where we live and work and play. Remind them, Lord, that true greatness is in serving. So help these leaders, Lord, to lead just as you would lead, with a servant's heart. Grant them and each of us the wisdom and the courage to know and to do what is right, what is good and true. With patience and respect, let them and each of us speak out when it's time to speak and listen when it's time to listen. May we all always be guided by a spirit of community and a spirit of justice. And may we all always be guided by your Holy Spirit in peace and joy and love. This we pray in the name of Jesus, our Lord and Savior. Amen.
Amen. Could you join me with the pledge, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have no one that signed up this evening for the public forum. So I'd like to call to order this special session of the Vienna City Council for February the 4th, 2021. Let the record reflect that I've taken roll, that all members of council, with the exception of Mr. Leach, are present. Having a quorum, we will proceed. The report of the minutes will be given at the regular council meeting on February the 11th. The minutes from the council meeting held on January the 28th, 2021 have been printed, posted, and circulated. Are there any corrections to the minutes? If there are no objections, then the minutes will stand approved as posted. We have no unfinished business this evening. We move on to our new business, which are the budget presentations this evening. Unfortunately, Chief Scholl will not be with us this evening, so we'll have to reschedule him. But anyway, what I'd like to do is ask Amy Roberts to go up and give a few introductory remarks.
Okay, tonight begins the budget process. We'll do part of the department heads this evening. The rest of the department heads will finish up next Thursday night. After that point, I will prepare an entire document for your review. I will prepare a capital outlay list with all of their requests. I will prepare a salary spreadsheet for your review. But tonight is for them to just present their budget. If you have questions at the time, please ask them. Or if you want to contact them outside of this meeting to get more information on their budget with themselves, I'm sure they would love to give you more information. I provide the information for line items 1 through 10, which, as I said, you'll receive that when all the department heads have spoken. And unless the department head speaks to some other salary increase or wish, it will include just the 35-cent longevity. I take care of line item 19, which are our lease payments. which we have committed to for next year. And I prepare line item 26, which is our property and casualty insurance and workers' compensation amounts. So if you don't have any questions at this point, Kevin Parrish will be first up.
Kim, if you would like to move up here to one of these other seats.
Oh, thank you, I'm fine, I appreciate that.
good?
Yeah, I'm good, Mayor, thank you.
When you make your presentations, if you would, we've got the microphone working now, so if you'd leave your mask on, Kevin. Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Okay, we'll jump right in here. We'll start with the building inspector budget, number 436. Instead of going through each line item, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that may come up, but there's only one number that's going to change on this year's budget from last, and that's line item 58, I believe, the capital outlay. And you'll notice that number in last year's budget was 11,168. The number this year is 0, and the reason for that is I requested a vehicle last year, and we did not purchase it because of the constraints put on us by COVID. So that would have been the amount of the payment for that vehicle for this year. So I'm not requesting a vehicle, so that number is 0. I'll be happy to address any questions on the building inspector budget if anyone has any.
I have a question. Is it on this budget or not, the money allotted for tearing down houses?
It does not come out of this one.
Okay.
That comes out of code enforcement.
Okay, I'll wait until we get to that part then, thank you.
Okay.
Also, I have a question. I know last year, or maybe year, I can't remember what year it was, but we had Dwayne Flutie. What's his role now? Because I know we kept him on for like a year to train because you didn't have all the credentials. Is that correct? Am I saying that correct, or?
Dwayne has retired from full-time. He is still on as a part-time employee with no benefits. He holds every credential that there is. And so for the plan reviews, the large commercial projects, we would require his services, and for any time that Kevin or John will be off, Dwayne will be on the job, so that we're covered with building inspections and code enforcement.
Okay, so it's part-time, no benefits right now?
Correct.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay, next one is planning and zoning, 437. Again, I'm not asking for any additional funds this year from what we had last year, so all the numbers are the same. Give you a second or two to look those over and hit me with any questions you have. Okay, moving on to the code enforcement budget, number 725. These numbers are all again the same. No increase, decrease from last year.
Remind me again, I know you guys tell me this every year, contract services, what does that include?
Kim, this addresses your question. This is the fund that we would use to take down a building in an emergency circumstance, potentially. Say, for instance, a structure caught on fire and it was a danger, it was leaning over someone else's property or a sidewalk that we couldn't wait for the insurance money. that's just an example, could be any kind of emergency like that.
So that's what, 16,200? Is that our,
Line item 30, yes, 16,200.
So how many houses, or how many structures did you take down last year?
That we paid for?
Yes,
None,
0.
none.
Is that generally the case?
Well, I've only been in this job now 3 years. As far as I know, we haven't used city funds to tear down anything, but like I said, this is an emergency fund.
Mhm.
And if we had to go through the process to get the money allocated, I mean, it'd have to be budget and finance, and
Right.
you can't wait that long for an emergency.
all right.
I understand that. Is there any situation where you know, take down a structure that's not an emergency?
Sure.
Okay, and so would that come out of this fund as well?
If we couldn't get someone else to pay for it, yes. My ultimate goal is not to spend a dime of the city's money to do this.
Sure. So, and just one more question about this particular line item. So I think it was, and the mayor could probably remind me of this, I think it was in the CDBG fund that we had also allocated around $16,000, we took out the CDBG for this exact same thing. So basically, we're holding $32,000 in reserve for removing structures.
The grant money, we had several structures that I had targeted for that grant money to tear down. And working with the owners of the property, they all complied and did it themselves, so we didn't have to spend any of that money,
That's good.
so.
That's it.
Okay.
Any further questions? All right, Kevin, thank you very much.
Well, in closing here, Mayor, I know the last year has been extraordinary for all of us due to the COVID situation. And I'd like to take this opportunity to recognize not only the folks in code enforcement, but all of the city employees. Everyone did an outstanding job for the city this year. Their devotion to duty, their sense of service, and their dedication is very commendable. As a group, these civil servants have kept the city running while exposing themselves and ultimately their families to the COVID risk. And as such, I would respectfully request that you reward these fine people with a raise. Now, I'm not asking for a specific amount. I just want you to keep them in mind. If there's any money that's available, I think they deserve it. Thank you.
Chief Pfeiffer?
Good evening. The first budget presentation I'll have would be for 416, which is the police municipal judge. There are no changes in that budget. The police municipal judge oversees municipal court, which is held on Tuesday evenings, generally once a month. I'm sorry, twice a month. For all municipal citations and whatnot that comes through here. So it's held in this very room. Does anybody have any questions about the municipal judge budget?
Will it be any different? I know that Mr. Crichton retired. Are we bringing somebody else in? Is it always the same pay for that person?
It is, yes, we are offering the same pay.
Okay.
There shouldn't be any pay salary difference.
The actual pay for the judge position is $6,500. The rest of the money is for the prosecutor. Okay. And I had a name brought to my attention today. So we're possibly going to have a replacement brought before council for approval very shortly.
Great.
Okay, so then if there's no other questions, we'll move into 455, which is the police department. Amy mentioned she prepares line items 1 through 10. I would ask in 1 through 10, we have actually 8 part-time receptionists, 7 which generally fill the schedule. The part-time receptionists at the police department They man the front desk after hours, after the full-time employees go home, weekends, holidays, and whatnot. Those part-time receptionists make minimum wage at $8.75, and I would ask that council would consider giving them a raise to $10 an hour. These folks handle sensitive information. Sometimes they actually handle emergencies on the phone. They are trained to transfer those emergencies, but sometimes in an emergency, there's things happen outside of those parameters that you have to immediately deal with. So they're important, and I think that's necessary. So comments, questions on that, I'd be happy, or I'll move on. All right, moving down, I don't know if you all prefer me to go to every line item. I will if you want. Line item 11's phone, there is no changes there. 12, 13, 14, no changes there. Line item 15 is building maintenance. Asked for an increase of $4,000 to building maintenance. It was previously $6,800 to $10,800, and this basically just covers the cleaning that is done, which is done daily. We've had an increase because of COVID and whatnot, so that covers the increase that I'm asking for line item 15. Line item 16 is equipment maintenance. I'm asking for an increase of $7,065 in that line item, from $24,935 to $32,000. So an explanation of this, every piece of software, it seems like that we have, requires annual, yearly maintenance fees attached to it. So when we, in our records management software years ago, we had InSync, and I came to council for a change when we changed over to what's called Zerker Suite. And when we had InSync, their annual fees were increasing rapidly. Some years they wouldn't increase at all, but some years they would increase 20%. So we ended up paying back then it was over $14,000 when we switched over. So we had a dramatic decrease, you can see there, and that was basically because of that annual fee was included when we first came on with the Zerker Suite system, which we just paid for out of capital that time. So that was the decrease there. We have added some new equipment that does require annual maintenance fees as well. So that, and I can go into detail further if you want, but out of that line item, not only is our software, but we are in a taser assurance program for our tasers that we pay annually. If the tasers go down or need fixed or whatever, it's included in our fee. Taser doesn't even actually offer that anymore to police agencies because it probably wasn't lucrative for Taser, but we're grandfathered in. We've had that for quite some time. It could be anything from toner to radio issues, computer security, the dispatch console, electronics, that type stuff. So generally, that's basically why I asked for money in line item 16. Moving on through, there were no changes until line item 23, which is professional services. I asked for $1,000 extra from $9,000 to $10,000 in that one. Professional services, we utilize the most for our canine, whether it's providing food, boarding, shots, medical stuff for our canine. Also comes out of this would it be any police testing, promotional testing. We pay for applicants' physicals, and that type thing from professional services. So those things are expensive. If we're contingent on hiring somebody, we do put them through psychological exams, and that's paid from like professional services. So we have some potential retirements coming up. I thought this would be a good opportunity or good time to have an extra little bit in that line item, anticipating that. Moving on from there, there were no changes until line item 45, which is uniforms, an increase of $1,000 from $20,600 to $21,600. And this was just in anticipation of new hires, to a bulletproof vest for an officer is about $1,300 to $1,500. So clothing is just getting more expensive, and leather gear and whatnot. So that was basically why I asked for the increase there. This year we don't have any capital outlay items. Usually there's cruisers in there. We're on kind of a rotation. I will commend the officers at the police department. They have done an excellent job maintaining cruisers. We are in a position this time around. I don't think we need any. We have maintained our vehicles very well. The police department always, as you see over there, maintains clean cruisers inside and out. The maintenance is routine, oil changes, whatnot. So this time around, I think we are good with what we have on the cruiser. So there are no capital outlay items this year. Is there any, and that gets us through the police department 455.
Chief, can we, oh, I'm sorry, were you?
No, go right ahead.
Can we go back, if you would, to the receptionist and your request there? And
Yes.
this really doesn't have anything to do with the budgetary figure, but since it was brought up and you are requesting a pay increase for those folks, back when we made the decision to open the police station back up 24 hours and bring these people in, there was a lot of discussion about their duties. And I just have a brief question about their duties.
Sure.
It's always been my understanding that these folks, and you even mentioned that they handled some emergency work.
Well,
But my understanding always has been that one, the goal was to have someone there.
yes.
Two, to handle some non-emergency calls.
Yes.
With an emphasis of maybe taking some of the load off of the 911 center. On a few occasions, myself, and I know of others who have called the 8563 with an issue that apparent non-emergency.
Mm-hmm.
Only to be told that we would have to call the 485-8501 non-emergency line at Central.
Correct.
Is that protocol? I mean,
It is. Well, those part-time receptionists, for one, are not trained dispatchers. So even unless there is an officer on station, they would need 911 to get a hold of the officer, unless they were going to call an officer on the phone. But every single incident that a police officer goes on is documented and given a report number. Okay, so it's going to happen anyway, if that makes sense. That information will actually at some point go through 911 on the workflow to get that number, because it's generated by 911. So there is a dispatch console up front. You can see that where they used to dispatch from prior to 911. It still works. I don't want to get into training dispatchers. They don't know sometimes even radio protocol. I mean, they're hearing it, and probably through experience could probably do it, but I don't want to put that burden on them. And sometimes people do still call 295-8563, and they're running through verbiage with, in an emergency, and these people are actually taking on the information just like they would be at 911. So it does happen sometimes. What you're mentioning, protocol is to go through 911. They officially dispatch the police officers to where they go. But I don't know if that answers your question or not, but yes, it is protocol to go through 911. Sometimes an officer is on station, so they might, put you on hold and buzz the back and say, can you, get the 8563 and talk to Roger Bibby or whatever it may be. That does happen. But the officer will ultimately let 911 know that I'm on with a complainant via phone at the Vienna police station, and that report number is generated.
okay, good, thank you.
Sure.
Hey, Chief. The salary number, is that including the raise that you were asking for the officers that you talked about last week?
No,
Okay,
no, this is completely separate. from
okay,
that.
all right.
Okay, if there's no other questions, thank you all.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes.
You're supposed to wait till you're announced. Now presenting Chris McGrew, IT Specialist.
Chief, getting back to you while Chris is getting ready. I know I've told you privately, but I want to tell you publicly, thank you so much for, I sit there in front of Neil's school and watch you guys, you know, police that zone during school hours, and it's awesome. You know, sometimes I get there before your police officers do, because it gives me excitement to do. So I sit there and watch them, and it's just the presence of that. You know, I have a 7-year-old kid that asked me, did they catch anybody today? You know, so just having that, you know, gives me, because I work from home now, so it gives me some excitement too. But you guys are doing a great job with that stuff. Yeah. Me too.
Good evening. All right, so I am going to present the budget for Department 439 data processing. I have quite a few changes, some additions, a lot of subtractions. As Amy said, she usually presents lines 1 through 10. However, I am asking for an increase in our salary, but I will tell you where I'm taking that from. As we go down through my my budgets here, 11. I'm dropping $20 off of that. We didn't use as much in our phone, and I'm just figured I'd just make it a round number. I have nothing through 16. 17 is staying the same. 18, 19, and excuse me. 18, 19, and 20, I have nothing. Training and education, I'm asking for an increase on that for continuing education, because as you guys know, IT is always changing, and looking for new ways to try to stay up on our current technologies. Line item 22 is our dues and subscriptions. I'm actually dropping that by $5,350 down to a flat $30,000, and that'll probably come off even more next year as well. Line item 23 is professional services for 18, 19, 19, 20, and 2021. I just pretty much did the same thing. Last year was my first budget year. I just did the same thing that was previously there. The professional services, I don't use it. I don't bring contractors in to do what I'm being paid to do. So far this year, I've only used $826 of that, and that was to repair, make some repairs to our fire system, our fire suppression system in the server room, and a couple of times that I had to have people come out and work on the legacy landlines that were here for the phone. So that is where I'm asking for the increase in our salary. I'm dropping that by $17,675 is what I'm dropping, and I'm asking to increase our salary by 15, 10 to the director and 5 to the technician position per year. Next lines down. Materials and supplies. I had 15,000 last year, and I've gone through quite a bit of that, replacing antiquated equipment. So I'm increasing it to, by 3,000 more this year, just to stay on top of stuff that keeps failing. Auto supplies stays the same. Uniform stays the same. Now my capital outlay is where I am asking for some more money on that. I'm asking for 50,000 to set aside for camera replacement, to do a rollout, a rolling camera replacement throughout the year. And I will, once I get further into that, I'll present my plan on how I want to roll that out once I get everything tied down to that. The other 55,000 that I'm asking for excuse me, let me back up before I go to that one. We have a 4-year computer rotation that we do here. Out of all of the departments, we only have 2 computers that are due for replacement next year, and there's 2 of them here in the city building, so that's $2,500 is what I'm going off of on that for two new computers for next year. The 55,000 that I'm asking for is for a cybersecurity vault, and what that is. And I will give a really short presentation on this. I can meet later on this with anybody that would like to. What this cybersecurity vault is it is a clean backup environment. We currently have a backup environment that we purchased last year. We currently have a backup environment that we purchased last year that we paid, I think we used, we paid about 90-something thousand for the backup and virtualization. That was previous to my employment here. What this does is this adds to that, and this is a one-way communication. Basically what it is a clean environment. What ransomware is doing now is they are going in and sitting in your environment. They're detecting whether you have backups. They see your backup routine, and then they infect your backups. They set your dates out by 10 years, which wipes out all of your backups. Then they hit your systems. And you're like, oh, well, I got a backup, I can just wipe it out. But then you go to your backups and there's nothing there. What this system does is this is a one-way replication, which it doesn't allow the backup system that we currently have to push to it. It makes a communication to the backup system one time a day, pulls it into a clean environment, scans the backup. If it sees that there is any sort of malicious stuff there, it discards it and sends up a notification on the screen there, which has to be checked. There's no connection to the outside world to this device. You have to physically walk to this device to access it. You cannot RDP to it. You cannot connect to it from the internet. You cannot connect to the internet from it. This is a very secure way. If we were to get hit with ransomware like what Wood County Schools got hit with last year, I could wipe it out and be back up and running in 4 hours. So that's what this this system is for. And with the transparency of wanting to put everything online scares me. And so with this system in place, I would sleep at ease. That would be, I think, the end of what I have.
Can I just make a point of clarification? This capital outlay line item, I picked it up off of his sheet, but it should read 107,500 in line item 50.
Yes. Yeah, 107,500 was my total capital outlay.
I have a question.
Yes.
Um,
Line item 59.
Oh, I see it now.
50,000 set aside for camera replacement. So that's, I know the last time we spoke about this was, a big investment.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, are you looking at camera replacement that is not going to be, in the cloud? Or,
No, I'm going cloud route.
okay, so
That's-
if you go cloud route, what's gonna be the ongoing fee every year for all that cloud storage?
There is I'll have to get the number for you,
Okay.
on what that's gonna be, but that'll be built into my dues and subscriptions each year.
Okay, that was my other question, because you have dues and subscriptions dropping by, $5,000 or whatever.
Mhm.
So, but you're thinking then you may have to,
Well, I'm also still paying, right now, I'm still paying for our current firewall systems, which those are gonna go away. I'm paying probably 15,000 a year for our firewalls, which that's gonna go away. Once our new, network is completely installed. So that moves that out of my dues and subscriptions there. I've also dropped some of our email cost. I did an audit of our email, found out ones that we didn't, that we weren't using full licenses on. All we needed was just the email, so I dropped some of that cost. So our dues and subscriptions next year should drop tremendously.
okay.
Because our network will be in before spring hits, I'm hoping.
So, I mean, it's kind of confusing because it's kind of in flux is what you're basically
Yes.
saying here. So if you put those 50 cameras online in this next budget year, I mean, what would the cost for that cloud service be?
I don't have a number for that right now. I
Okay,
can
you
get
s-
it, I can get it and get it to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think, because that's gonna be an ongoing cost,
Yes.
considered in every budget going forward for every camera that we put up that is cloud-based and does not have that NVR hardware system.
Even with an NVR hardware system, you're still paying maintenance and license agreements for that many cameras, yes.
Well, sure, but is it gonna be,
It's not as much. I think with the cloud, the last I looked, it was like $120 a camera.
per year?
Yes.
Okay.
Per year.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Chris? All right, thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Steve Black, Parks.
Have a few handouts here for you, then I'll begin my presentation. But while she's passing this out, before I get into the budget, I want to share with you a letter I got this week from the Spartan Foundation, which is run by Hap Espenshade and chaired by J.T. Thomas. Had spoken to them back in September, October, about some projects and some things for the parks. Well, unfortunately, time went on, just a little mix-up along the way, and at the final hour, they called me to see if we had a presentation, which I did. And it was pretty comprehensive. I hadn't heard anything until this week, and I thought, at least we got our foot in the door. Well, the good news is our foot is definitely in the door, because at this time, the Spartan Foundation would like to offer a matching gift challenge grant for permanent pickleball courts in the amount of $70,000, which means the city would need to come up with the additional $70,000. And I can't think of a better capital project to use capital reserve. We'll play on words. But anyway, part two. I had talked about last time a 13-person fitness rig for middle school, high school age kids, which we have a bid opening tomorrow. But I have one more puzzle piece that I wanted to finish, and it was a pretty good sized playground piece for $35,000. The Spartan Foundation has agreed to purchase that piece, $35,000. We pay the installation and mulch and border. So at this point in time, I was shocked $105,000 our way. So we're doing something right. And I've agreed to obviously keep these guys in the loop, everything that we're doing as we move forward. And after every budget, I'll update with them and see if they can get involved again. I also, is Jenna not here? Wanted to thank her for the little warm-up, if you all didn't see it in the paper today. Totally unplanned, but very nice. Want to also mention that bids I had talked about before, talked about last time, and she also put it in the paper. One bid for the Spencer Park restroom is going to have to be rebid. There's some omissions, some things I wasn't aware of. We need to do an addendum. The bid opening is tomorrow. We couldn't pull it all together. So at this point, there's 3 people that definitely had picked up packets and were interested, and we will rebid that project at a later time. But the others, tomorrow will be resurfacing and the reline of the tennis and basketball courts, the installation of and purchase of that 13-person cross-fitness rig, and the Christmas lighting displays, which also include pole lights from 13th Street down to Burger King. So hopefully light up the commercial end a little bit. Basically, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time. I don't want to bore everybody, but you should have gotten one of these packets with the picture on the front of our park logo. At this point, let's see. The first thing you got was the Spartan Foundation letter. The next thing is my narrative of the departments that I'm involved with, and I just want to highlight a few of these things. Our department is responsible for several parks in the community. Actually, almost 550 acres comprise everything that we're involved with. That's Jackson Park, McDonough, Spencer, Maplewood, and actually the Neil Cook Cemetery as well. The goal of our Parks Department is to be family-oriented, a place that people want to raise their families, a place that people want to move to. We want to create excitement. Linda Kern plans the events. My guys execute them, and it's a team effort. So that's one more thing that's a bonus for the Parks Department. Just keep our fingers crossed. God willing, we're able to do that this summer. We're also trying to, as I mentioned with the playground pieces, still incorporate a few other pieces, and I'm asking for $15,000 in this budget for some smaller pieces over at Spencer Park. Christmas lights. Back when we first started getting into this, we had an army of angels, basically, over in Jackson Park, and it's now expanded to the ball fields, the rec center, senior center, and we also try to jazz up the city building a little bit, make it a little bit better. And we have the large tree as you come into Vienna from the bottom end of town, the big tree at Neal. Next department is recreation. And as everyone is aware of the fact of our state-of-the-art ball fields, we just opened this week signups, baseball, softball, t-ball, and soccer. And I called tonight to see how many people had actually signed up. 25 already. This is, I know it doesn't sound like many, but your first week, it's a good thing. People want to get out, they want to do things. So we're off to a good start. We'll also be hosting the River States College Softball Tournament. The first weekend in May. It's an NAIA tournament, college tournament, but they did so well and enjoyed it 2 years ago. It was canceled this past year, that they put together a little proposal. They want to be here the next 2 years and hopefully more. The tennis courts are all lighted. They're home to Parkersburg Catholic. Jackson Middle School plays their matches up there, obviously open to the general public. And with the pickleball lines, permanent pickleball courts are going to be an unbelievable addition up there. I'm still going to put some overlays on 2 courts, so And when things go well, assuming the courts are approved, we'll have 8 pickleball courts. The one area of concern at this point, and it's a good problem that we're having, older kids are staying with the baseball programs. We had, and I mentioned that last time, we had some problems. It's going to be a good thing, except next year, we could field as many as 3 11, 12-year-old teams. Hate to send these kids to Mineral Wells because we have nowhere to play. And hopefully, COVID fixes itself because we've been pretty good partners with Jackson. We can play soccer up there in the spring and use our big ball field. But at this time, you know, unless that changes, you know, I've got 350 soccer kids versus 50 baseball kids, but hate to send them away. So it's something we're exploring some options for soccer fields. The last area of responsibility for me is the pool. I mentioned last time, we've got renovations, we've got some repairs, we've got different things going on, and we will be ready. Target date is, I think it's June 6th to open. We're prepared for social distancing, the whole 9 yards, and as well as all the classes that are involved. But the one thing now I want to mention before I really get into some of this stuff is each request from me, in my opinion, is solid. I was trained by Amy. I was the finance person for 19 years. I'm not into frivolous spending. I'm not into wants or a wish list. These are things that we need to continue to develop, to continue to grow parks, recreation, and pool. So please keep that in mind. Ask me any questions. I'm a fountain of information, I guess, for lack of better words. Okay, the next thing, the final page that you received, I participated in a wage survey with the West Virginia Parks Association, which I am a member of. You've got, or I prepared comparative line items for the parks director down to entry-level laborers. The first column, hourly wage, is the average hourly wages throughout the state. Now, I actually don't know how many people participated in this survey, but I know there's some pretty big parks and there's some really small parks. But what I want to show you folks is the next line, current wage. You can see there's some discrepancies. So at this point, I've got 2 guys, and I have to thank Craig because it came from Public Works. These guys have their CDLs, they're heavy equipment operators, and these guys, in my opinion, are crew leaders as well. I'd like to bump them up a wage classification. They're both S3s to S4s. But the one thing that really stuck out, and you know, I thought about this because I always tell my guys, you got to look out for yourself sometimes because nobody else will. Well, I'm going to practice what I preach because in the scheme of things, in the median range, I am approximately $13,000 below everybody. I would really like to be considered for a raise. $10,000 was my target number, but like I said, nothing frivolous. I understand the process. Nobody really understands it better than me except Amy because she trained me. So I just ask your consideration as we move forward. The last thing, and it's in the front of your budget, it's called budget highlights. And if there are across the board raises as well for employees, I'd like my guys to please be considered. What I did was hit the high point, the increases and decreases and reasons why. And I'm not going to bore you with these details, but one thing I want to point out in both the parks and recreation, maintenance, building and grounds, I'm not exactly sure what happened back in the day, but we have had to do a lot of electrical upgrades, and hopefully we have most of that taken care of. But that's a big part of that line item. but I'm also, under Parks, wanting to repaint the community building. So that's included in there. Plus, Jack has about $10,000 worth of projects up at McDonough. So even with adding all that and subtracting a few others, it's a $15,000 increase. Other items you can see based on actual expenses until I get down to line 57, capital outlay buildings, nothing. This year, nothing. But under 58, other, what I was mentioning, Christmas lights and replacements, I'd like to continue into the next budget year with some more pieces, and the playground pieces, $15,000, which would be smaller pieces for the little kids. One other thing that I didn't realize that was my responsibility, as you go down the access road to the basketball courts, there's a fence line that is horrible. We've tried to, piece it back together, trying to be a good neighbor. Well, it's my fence. So I got a price to replace that whole thing all the way down to the dog park, $13,000. Then under line 59, capital outlay equipment, I'm asking for replacements for 1-ton diesel that we're using at this point, but it's about ready to be parked. We did have to park one this week, which was our 2003 GMC Sierra, and also one we're limping along, and fortunately we do have a maintenance crew up at Public Works that have helped us with this, and it's a 2007 GMC. So I'd like replacements for 3 trucks, if at all possible. The thing that I really would like to have more than anything, because it would help in McDonough, it would help with mowing, doing the hillsides, a variety of projects, and I talked about it last year, was a track skid steer with attachments. The price is $66,500. I don't have a problem with something used, low mileage, and perhaps, and I don't know how the auction thing would work. Can we participate with others? I have no idea. But this is something that I'm going to put out there that would really help us out quite a bit. Burnishing machine, which is basically a polishing machine for primarily the community building, and then also a floor cleaning machine, which, it's wet, dry kind of work. The other one is a polishing machine, but both of ours are on their last leg. Recreation, maintenance, building and grounds, same thing. We have some electrical work that we still need to do, but I also need some roof replacements on some of our buildings and press boxes. Capital outlay buildings, nothing. Under line 58 other, $15,000 for soccer goals for the Vienna Rec soccer program, and $10,000 for some fencing projects on fields 4, 5, and 6. And line 59 under 541, nothing. The swimming pool, at this point in time, I'm not gonna beat this one to death. And right now is budget time. The general fund budget is extremely important. This is something that I would like to bring back to council at a later date, a little bit more of a when I say long-range plan, not that far out, because it all depends what direction you all want to go with this. But I don't want to take up budget presentation time, budget decision time for this, because this would be a costly venture, probably require a bond issuance or some financing from a bank for a number of years. So I won't go much further with that. I had a few notes here to myself. Kevin said, and I thought, I didn't just copy him, because I did have this written down. When I look at Vienna, I have not had problems with the other departments and department heads, especially coming from the finance director to the parks. I called Craig, he was on speed dial, and has helped quite a bit. But at this point, if my sewer backed up, my water line broke, I want those guys to do it. There was a fire. I've seen Chief Scholl and his guys in action. Fortunately not firsthand, but police department, second to none. I know what these guys are going with. My son's a policeman. It's not an enviable thing at this point in time. Chris from IT, is it a big deal? Without his services, I'm lost across the hillside. So, and he's talking about the cameras. When the cameras are functional, they've actually saved us a lot of money. And the police have been able to prosecute on a few instances. The senior center, community events, these are things that I'm proud to see, proud to be a part of. I'm from Pennsylvania, but I've lived here, seems like forever. I mean, Tara was 3, she's 37, she'll kill me. But anyway, this is my home. I enjoy this place, I'm proud of it, and I want to do whatever I can to help it grow. But like I said, the other departments, department heads, and their employees have been really good for me to work with. This pandemic has been a rough situation, but everybody has, for me at least, everybody's been pretty supportive. So I appreciate all that. But one more thing that I want to stress, and then I'm finished. This is not a wish list, what I'm presenting. These are things that I really need to continue to move the parks forward. That's it. Does anybody have anything? And or if not tonight, look through this. In this packet, I have pictures of the things that I'm requesting. I'm in the trailer over by the ball fields. Call me. I'll make myself available.
I do think, I'll add something, Steve, because I think because I'm a sports junkie and I get pumped when I hear you talking about the sports and what we have. And we have, I think about, and I'll still, Melissa and I were talking the other day, what we have here at Vienna is something special. You know, we're retail, and that's what we're going to be for a long time. John's Manville, it's been, you know, that's on hold. We'll become that, hopefully something great. But right now, we're retail capital of this area. So, but the piece we have that no one else has, because people around us, you know, Williamstown's growing, Emerson Commons, you know, once Fort Borman Hill develops, you know, what are we going to left with here in Vienna? I think the one opportunity we have is our sports programs. And I'll probably talk about this every closing comment that we have when we have closing comments about what we have here in Vienna with our sports complexes. I know there's people, you know, at Mayor, I've talked to Mayor a few times today, and Craig helped me out some things, that we have such a valuable asset here with our land. It's something that, you know, when I go to other cities, I keep saying these things over and over, I see what value this brings to the cities and how people are going to shop in our retail stores. But the one thing we have that nobody else has is a beautiful park and a space to do things in. You know, we have people, Adam Jones is involved in, and Tim Roberts is on the park board, and we got some good people that have no kids involved with this stuff, but they want to do what's better for our city. And instead of just, you know, I don't want to keep talking about over and over what we have to do something. I think some things are being done, but I think that's a great way for our city to grow, for make this a destination for people to come here, shop in our retail stores, get these businesses going, you know, the small businesses here in Vienna, plus the restaurants that we're losing all around us. You know, so we really need to act on this. And like I say, some things are going right now on the ballpark side. So I appreciate Mayor Rapp and Craig and Steve and the park board that's been supportive, and some of the other individuals that have reached out to me. So we have a good thing going. I want to keep the momentum going. And I hope, as council people, I hope we listen to what Steve's saying, because this is the one thing we have that nobody else has, that we can really make Vienna known for, is our sports complexes. I played ball for Tim Roberts' dad back in the day. We played on the big field 4 now, the big soccer field. We can't do it anymore because soccer's outgrown us, which is great. You know, our numbers are phenomenal. You got a good park board, you got a good rec board, and you got some whoever's talking to me back here, but some people on council that are sports people themselves. So I say we take this, we run with it, and we support our parks and recs and get these programs, blow them out of the water to get people to come to Vienna, West Virginia.
Steve, I'd like to add something to the Spartan letter. I've asked Amy to prepare a budget revision for Budget and Finance next month to come to council, or Budget and Finance first, but ultimately come to council with a budget revision to take the $81,000 out of capital reserve to match the funds from the Spartan Fund to get this to go forward. So
That's great.
you will see a budget revision come forward.
Awesome.
We have an opportunity here to do something fantastic, and so I really appreciate Hap Esmond Shade and the Spartan Foundation for stepping up. I think it's going to be a great addition, so if you all are on board, our capital reserve will fund the other half of that, and we'll move forward with that project very quickly.
Sounds good.
Great.
I have a comment. I really appreciate a couple weeks ago when you let me come to the pool and tour the pool, and everything that's going on there. And I appreciate the work that you're doing to get it ready this summer, basically putting a Band-Aid on it. But it's important that that pool be open for the summer. And when I look at, the kids that use the pool, plus the adults that use the pool, the seniors and everything, I think we get a lot of use there. And I don't know what the long-term plan is going to be as far as what's going to happen, but I appreciate you bringing it to everyone's attention that we really need to start thinking about that, because we're going on our 4th season with the baby pool that's not functioning. And I do hear from people, I hear from grandparents and parents, because that's an issue when they have really young kids. And so I'm just saying thank you for doing that, because the pool is something for me that I think we need a community pool. Not every kid in Vienna is going to be able to afford to go to the country club, and I think that's a really big thing for our community, as well as, the sports programs. We talk about that too. And the last comment I have, and I spoke to you about this in private, of thinking about potentially incorporating the new 501c3 Friends of Vienna, to try to work with them to put together like a Christmas light program where we can get businesses or families or whatever to sponsor displays, so that Christmas light program can continue to grow. I think what you guys do is beautiful. I love it. But, it's a lot when we have to put that out of the general budget, $20,000 and so on, that there may be some alternatives, some money on the sidelines that we can use. And I think, Parkersburg does something similar. And I think that that's a great way to consider doing that. And I know probably Jack Mathers would be interested in that. And as a matter of fact, they were talking about lighting the Grand, of putting lights on Grand Central and so on. So just something to think about, and I hope that can happen.
Yeah, I've not talked to him about that, but yeah, that's a very good possibility. One thing you mentioned that I forgot to mention when I was talking about the pool, all area pools have experienced some upgrade or another recently. And I just found out today, even the country club is going to put $1.5 million into a pool upgrade. That's country club, I understand that, but it's a lifeblood. We're not gonna make money there, but it's something very, very important to our community.
Any other questions?
Now I'm done.
All right, Steve, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that concludes our agenda for this evening. Council comments? All right. The next regular council session is scheduled for Thursday, February the 11th. We will continue with multiple presentations on the 11th. On February the 18th, there will be another special council meeting where all of the outside agencies that we work with will be in to make their presentations, and then we'll finish up the month with our last meeting. So with that, I guess meeting adjourned this evening.